everyone to another episode of the Mad Men Podcast, your podcast dedicated to the AMC television show Mad Men, where you can find your best source for news, talk, and more. My name is Jeremiah, and I'm joined by Elise. How you doing, Elise?
I'm good, Jeremiah. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I am so excited because this last episode of Mad Men we're about ready to review, the strategy, was just fantastic, wasn't it?
It was really, really good. It was so good they had like two different endings in it.
Yes, exactly. It did seem to have two different endings, which of course we will definitely talk about all of that. So that is what, of course, the main focus of this episode is going to be. We're going to be reviewing the strategy, which of course is the 6th episode of Season 7. If you are joining us live, we appreciate that. That's very exciting. We have a chat room open there on madmenpodcast.com/live if you want to join us in the chat room. Otherwise, you can just prepare yourself for some questions if you would like. We have, of course, a lot of different ways you can send in questions for the question section of the podcast. One of them is you can actually click on the video itself and send a question on the video if you'd like to do that. You can, I put a thread on Facebook. If you are a Facebook fan there and you have liked our page, you can leave a question there. And, of course, you can always tweet us at MadmenPodcast using the hashtag MMCast. And we already have some people that have left some comments on our video on YouTube. So that's, of course, another way you can leave us a question. So we'll definitely have a question section coming up pretty soon. Also, Elise, at the top of the episode, I wanted to show you something here. Look at this. I have my first Stay Mad mug that I'm drinking out of tonight for the podcast. Isn't that beautiful?
That is a lovely, lovely item. I want one.
Well, hopefully, if anybody out there would like to have one, go over to madmenpodcast.com/shop and check it out. That will take you to a link to our Cafe Press store where we have 3 separate designs for the Stay Mad concept. And I wanted to thank Harold. Harold, of course, has been a long-time listener of our podcast. He actually recently bought something. So thank you, Harold. Of course, any money raised on the website all goes towards helping keeping this podcast going, cost of running the show, of course, and hopefully maybe eventually down the road I can spend some of that money to buy even more fancy equipment to make the podcast even that much better, hopefully. At least that's always my goal. So anyway, so I just wanted to mention that at the top of the episode. Last thing I wanted to mention is we are going to be giving away a copy of both Season 5 and Season 6. We're going to be giving it away in our review next week for the final episode of this half of 2014. And we're going to do the same thing we did for the giveaway that we did for the Dow, Elise. Same rules apply. But this time I decided I'm just going to take a random quote from the entire season. So, Elise, are you ready for this quote? This is going to be the quote that everyone has to have for this contest that we're doing. The quote is, "Who said, 'I'm not stupid, I speak Italian'?" There you go. That's the quote. Now, I know what you're thinking. That is a pretty easy quote, but that's actually kind of the point, Elise. I wanted to make sure that everyone had an opportunity this time around to take part in this particular giveaway. I know we had some restrictions with the doll. That was just something, of course, we could not avoid, but there is no restrictions to this at all. So I already actually had, I haven't even announced this yet. I already had somebody send in an email today, so they must have been perusing our website and happened to notice when I posted it. So go on over to madmenpodcast.com/DVD giveaway. It has all the rules there, how this is going to work, but it's pretty much going to work exactly the same way it did before. You're just going to email me to feedback at madmenpodcast.com, easy for me to say. Just send that email to me with in the subject line, say giveaway, and just tell me who said it. Just tell me who said the quote, and then, of course, make sure you give us some contact information because if you, of course, are the lucky winner, we will have to be able to ship that out to you with your information. So we definitely need that. That is definitely important. I got to know where I'm sending it to, right, Elise?
Definitely.
Absolutely. So anyway, that should be pretty exciting. We're going to do another giveaway next week, and that always is a lot of fun to do something like that live on the show. So if you, like I say, go over there, read all the rest of the information. I'm sure I'm kind of missing something there important, but essentially that's pretty much how we're going to be doing this. Fun and easy, and I can't wait to give it away. This is going to be great.
Very cool, very cool. How did you guys like Million Dollar Arm?
Yes, it's actually now that you mentioned that we're going to move right into the gossip section. I did want to start up with that. First of all, Elise, thank you so much for getting a hold of us, or getting us the contact information for the local Disney rep here. They were able, to, of course, to get me and my wife in for a special viewing, press viewing of the film, and overall, I really enjoyed the movie a lot. Now, my wife Rachel, she'll tell you, she thought it was one of the best movies she's seen in a long time. I, of course,
Oh.
didn't go quite that far, but I would at least I would give this easily 3.5 out of 5 stars for me. I thought it was a very heartwarming film, not a whole lot different from the stuff that you wrote in your review, which I pretty much agree with 100% on all the points that you hit on with the movie. I just think a couple of things that I wanted to mention. I meant to write down this actor's name, but do you know who the actor is that played? I think it was a Mitt or something like that. He was the guy who was that was the one that was basically asked
An
if he
intern.
could, yeah, of be an intern, right?
Yeah.
I don't know who that guy is, but he really stole the show. Him and Alan Arkin's character was I thought kind of a shining moments, at least for the comic relief. I thought. What did you agree with that?
I love them. I mean, Alan Arkin, I have a crush
Oh,
on him. I mean, he sleeps through 90% of his scenes and he still steals the show. He's brilliant.
yeah, he's
So,
fantastic.
yeah, it was very good.
Yeah, I
I
mean
miss this guy.
it's definitely one of those kind of movies that you have these two guys who are trying to reach a milestone of something that they never would have. The odds are against them, right? To do this, to be able to find a way to be able to play baseball within 10 months' time, which is remarkable just in that feat alone. To know that these guys did it for real is pretty spectacular. So it's one of those stories. I have to admit, as a huge baseball fan myself, I don't even remember much about this. I think after watching the movie, it kind of sort of sparked my memory a little bit about the story, about something about Indian kids, kids from India that were come over to the States and were tried out on. So I briefly remember this, but the movie, of course, highlights the entire story, and it does highlight a big time a lot about the agent, who, of course, is played by John Hamm, who did a fantastic job. You think John did a pretty good job in the film?
Definitely, definitely. He's great.
Yeah, so I would say definitely go out and see Million Dollar Arm if you have not done so already. Really is a heartwarming movie that, of course, like you had mentioned in your review, everyone in the family can go to it, which is always nice, right? If you can
Yeah,
take the whole family, so that's great. So definitely go out and check that out. It's out here from brought to you by, of course, the great people at Disney. Again, thank you, Disney, for being able to get us in on that screening there. That I tell you what, at least I could get used to this. Going to see a movie like that with the screening and the sectioned off seats, and of course all that good stuff. They treat you a little differently when you go to something like that. I could get used to that experience. So
it's
that was very
very
nice.
nice, very nice. That movie's open wide now too, so everybody can go, and it's
Yes,
definitely worth whatever movie tickets cost in your neighborhood. It's a good one. You won't begrudge spending whatever you have to.
that's correct. Exactly. And the last part of the gossip section I wanted to mention, Greg, our intern, did send me a little bit of information he thought might be kind of fun to share. One of the things he found on the Daily Beast had their review of this episode, at least. They said it was the best episode of the season so far, which I guess I don't think too many people would probably disagree with that. It said it offered the embarrassment of riches along with some heavy allusions and the finest hour of Mad Men so far. They even kind of compared it a little bit to the suitcase, which I think me and you are probably going to mention that during our review. Of course, most people know the suitcase has always been considered one of my favorite episodes of Mad Men. So now the question will be, is that this one being so good, how does it rate to that one? And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that. He also said to make sure you check out the Times piece they did. They did some more fun stuff with potential spin-offs. They came up with some more fun spin-offs after seeing this episode. One of them involving Trudy that sounded like it would be a lot of fun. Trudy and Megan, it said The Real Housewives of Mad Men was one of the ones they came up with.
I would watch that. I would watch
That would be
that.
funny, yeah. So that was one of them. I'm going to have a link to these some of these stories in the gossip link section on the episode for the show notes. So you definitely be able to check some of that out. It does sound like overall, almost all the reviews he saw was very positive for the most part of this episode. Not too many people, I think, were down on this episode at all. So that's very positive to hear. And one last thing, too, he said to check out vulture.com. They had something pretty interesting on there, he said, and it has to do with the fact about that final shot with Don and Peggy and Pete together. They were highlighting the fact that this is something they have a bond in common together was an absent child, which, of course, was Pete and Peggy's child, who they also point out that Don was instrumental in helping Peggy get over. So that was kind of an interesting little spin there about the way that the three of them they do have something in common there with that bond with that child, which of course goes in very nicely with all the discussion about family, which of course this episode had really dealt a lot about the question about family and what is family and all that stuff. So which we'll talk a lot about here during our review. At least that's all I had from Greg, our intern. Thank you, Greg, so much for those reports. Appreciate that. I don't have anything else for the gossip section. Do you have anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Fantastic. Well, let's move into our review. Of course,
Okay.
this episode was, like I said earlier, the 6th episode of Season 7 of AMC's television show, and it was written by Semi Chellis and directed by Phil Abraham, and it originally aired on AMC on May 18th, 2014. Elise, I know we discussed at the top of the episode how much we enjoyed it. Why don't you go ahead and just kind of give us an overview of your thoughts of the episode?
It was a really good one. There was so much going on. AMC had teased out that there would be two characters who we hadn't seen in a long time on, and so it was exciting to see Bob Benson back and to see Trudy. And I think Trudy definitely put to rest any of my suspicions that she and Pete might be getting together. I think she is definitely done with him.
Oh, yeah, I think that's over.
Yeah, I thought maybe, but no, not so much.
Yeah, that was a big tease, though. All of us, of course, that saw that on Twitter, that's where I saw it at. I'm sure they had it on their feeds and stuff. That there's two familiar faces, I think is all they said, right? Two familiar faces.
Yeah, just two familiar faces. I was hoping it was going to be Sal. I had tweeted that out yesterday. Please let it be Sal. Please let it be Sal. No such luck, but I'm still hopeful we'll get him sometime before the show completely runs out.
Yeah, to give another shout out to Harold tonight. He was one of the first ones that tweeted me and said that his guess was it was going to be Bob Benson taking care of Trudy's dad.
Ah!
So in a way, he was sort of right. That's what he was bragging to me about online. He was technically right, and I was like, okay, sort of, whatever.
Whatever. Well, unemployed Don Draper, or re-employed Don Draper, as he is now, said it was going to be Trudy, which he was right, and
Yes.
Sylvia, and that there would be another three-way this week. But I suspected he was drinking and told him he should sober up.
Yeah, that's right. I did see that tweet. That was pretty good. Yeah, so everybody was wondering who it was going to be, and then of course, then it wound up just being Trudy and Bob. I think everybody was excited to see Bob again. Oh, one of the questions I had for you: do you think what kind of irony was it this week that the two returning characters we could see this week was Bob Benson and Trudy, both of course played by James Walk and Alison Brie. Two people who this past week was in the news recently because both of their shows, Community and The Crazy Ones, have been canceled. So those two are up for some new jobs.
Yes, they jinxed themselves. But Community had a really good long run.
Yeah,
Crazy One, not so much. But
no.
But you know, them's the breaks. At least they're, you know, good news, bad news. Your show's canceled, but your other show's on.
Right. Well, James Walk, I think, to me, my personal opinion, because we did watch The Crazy Ones, I thought he was the best part of the show myself. I know most people are going to say Robin Williams, but I've seen Robin Williams. I know his act. I thought his character was very charming and fun, and he actually played off really well with Robin Williams' character. So I actually thought he was the best part. I think James has a bright future, don't you?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm sure we'll be seeing him in things to come, and we'll have our Mad Men ownership over him forever. Every time we see him in something, we'll be like, Bob Benson.
Yeah, exactly. He will be always Bob Benson to us. That's true.
It's
Well,
true.
I know I've now sidetracked us big time. So sorry about that.
That's all
Getting back
right.
to the episode. So yeah, I personally love this episode extremely. I mean, by far, it is definitely the best episode of the season. I really loved the overall theme of this episode. And you mentioned in your review, of course, you talked about loyalty, which there was a lot about loyalty in this episode, wasn't there?
There really was. It felt like everybody, as much as like some episodes in previous seasons have really been about like all of them stabbing each other in the backs and
Hmm.
just nobody taking care of anybody. This one was like everywhere you turned, it was payback for everybody. It was Harry was being put up for partner, and Don was like, well, I don't care what you say about him, you gotta know this is a loyal guy after he had pulled Don out of the fire telling him about the cigarette deal. And I mean, just everybody was taking care of each other, and even Bob Benson taking care of the guy from Chevy when he gets arrested for indecent acts. It's like everybody's just trusting each other and taking care of each other, and that is unusual on Mad Men.
Right. Yeah, that is kind of unusual. There was some unusual things about this episode and some of the way our characters behave, especially Don. We're definitely seeing a different side of Don in this episode. Every episode that we've had so far this half, each one of them gets deeper and deeper into a side of Don Draper that I don't think a lot of us thought we would ever see. I'm sure we'll talk a lot about that as we get into some of these scenes that we want to see, but I really enjoyed that. And then, of course, that overall feel of family. So much was tied into that in this episode. I really enjoyed that. Everything from Pete's story, Pete being told by Trudy that he's no longer part of this family. Oh my goodness, that was touching. Then, of course, the overall theme of the pitch that they went with was all about family. There was just so much involved, and there's more stuff, examples here I could go on with, but I really enjoyed that. How it really tied in very well with the episode. It was just a really tight, well written, well produced episode that when you watch Mad Men long enough, you know that most episodes are very good. But then when Mad Men is really, really good, you know it because it's an episode like this where just everything is just fantastic. One of, I would think you would probably agree that the most touching part about this episode was leading into some some of the stuff that happens between Don and Peggy in this episode. And that, of course, has to do with a lot of things that's going on with this big Burger Chef pitch. Let's go ahead and start talking a little bit about that. One of the things we saw right off the beginning of the episode was we had Peggy and John Mathis are out on the field collecting data at a real Burger Chef. What do you think about the way they opened up the episode with that?
I thought it was interesting. I thought it was interesting later when they were doing the pitch and their explanation of like the car and the reflection of the sign in the windshield and the kids in the car and the whole thing. It was like exactly the opening of the episode with the
Mm-hmm.
reflection of the Burger Chef sign in the car and stuff. And it's hard. Peggy keeps getting slapped in the face with that family thing, and so it's hard for her to spend every day talking to families and trying to get to the bottom of what would reach those people to sell to
Mm-hmm.
them. So it's interesting. And then later to find out it was like her 30th birthday while she was doing it. It was just like, ugh, turn the knife. Poor Peggy.
Yeah, there was a lot of tough things for Peggy to face in this episode. I love the fact that, by the way, when they were asking about, she asked how much money we have left. And he said enough for 2 more families and for us to get Chinese food. I'm like, oh, you guys don't even want to eat Burger Chef?
They've probably been eating Burger Chef all day, every day. They're
That's kind of what I was thinking too.
never eat Burger Chef again.
No, they'll necher have it again, I'm sure. Although they were eating it at the closing scene, but yeah, I bet you
Yeah.
by the time they're done with this, they're never going to want burger again. I don't know. I know that wouldn't work for my wife. She thinks the hamburger is one of the best things in the world. She'll tell you that. Her death row food is a cheeseburger. Whereas mine is pizza. So so I thought it was very interesting right off the bat with this whole thing to its pitch. This kind of really leads into what happens with, I think, really kind of starts the thing with Peggy and her lack of confidence with this pitch. But Pete, of course, is in town, and he's there. And one of the things is he shows his loyalty immediately to Don. Not only does he want Don to be in their meeting that they're having about the pitch, but then he requests with Lou to have Don also be part of the pitch itself, to actually present the pitch. What did you think about those the transaction, how that took place? Or I guess we shouldn't be surprised that Pete was sticking up for Don, right?
Yeah, although you would think he would have some loyalty to Peggy. I mean, he's kind of sabotaging her. She's trying to get her foothold, and that was not helpful. And he's like, I mean, I think he thinks he is when he says things like, she's as good as any woman in advertising. It's like, she's better than you, dude. Just simmer down. So, I mean, it was good for Don and bad for Peggy. But, I mean, ultimately, I think she maybe did believe that it was good for the pitch for them to kind of play the roles. And they do that sometimes, break up a pitch and play roles when they're doing it. So,
yeah.
What are you going to do?
She was surprised she got that little surprise, too, that Ted was on the phone.
Yeah, that hurt. That hurt that Ted was in on that little sabotage. But then they show Ted, like, at the end, just, like, with his dead eyes staring off, just like, I am so miserable. It was so sad. It was just like, I don't know what's going to become of Ted. I'm very worried about him.
Yeah. Yeah, I am very worried about Ted. If we have time, we'll have to talk about Ted, but we'll see. I think, to me, obviously Don was ecstatic when he finds out, when Peggy says, hey, we want you to be part of it. I mean, I love how he did the fist pump thing. He was really excited about it. I think, though, and I don't think he necessarily did it on purpose in this particular moment. I mean, you can correct me if you think differently, but when he questions, like, hey, I kind of was running around the idea about maybe doing it in the person or the outlook of the child, right? And that seemed to really spiral Peggy into completely doubting everything she is doing with this, all the work that they put into this pitch. Do you think it was because what Don said, or do you think she never really was very confident with it, going back to some of the things you said earlier about how maybe she struggles with the fact that she doesn't feel like she should be working on something about families? What do you think it was that really caused this?
I think that she really does feel like, if Don says that he's like, that this isn't it, and by saying, I was thinking maybe this other idea, he's basically saying that. By mentioning anything else, she knows that Don thinks that maybe there's something better, and so it does. It brings the whole thing into question for her, and probably rightly, they do come up with a much more carousel type ad that's more their style that they're known for doing. So yeah, I mean, she questioned it as soon as he questioned it.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe she knew before, like, and like Stan says, there's always a better idea. So, right. I mean, they probably always question it, and Don says, like, you just have to live with not knowing. You're never going to go like, yes, now I've arrived.
Yeah, as things kind of progressed with this sequence of events that happens, I think for me, when I was watching it, I also kind of came across this feeling that this is part of the learning process for Peggy, because she's never really been quite in the position she is now. She's been pretty close to it, but she's really in it now, where this is all on her. I mean, I think she kind of was in that position though when she was with Gleason, Shaw, and Ted, I think. But she has always been the head copywriter. But I mean, she's really putting that pressure on her right now because she's in this position. I think it's kind of a learning curve, and so. One of the best parts about this episode, of course, is when it's just Peggy and Don. I think it was on the Sunday afternoon working this thing out. That by far was the best thing, I think. I mean, you're right. Stan even mentions the fact that, hey, you never know there's always going to be a better one, but just go with what you have. But I think that the really shining moment here was this conversations that she has with Don, when she's just fed up. Don shows up, says, "Oh, you're here on your white horse to save the day," and then they go into this amazing conversation that I didn't know if we would ever see in Mad Men, and that's where she gets a chance to pick his brain and he divulges everything he can to her about his process and how he goes through this exact issue when he had when he was questioning whether or not it was a good pitch. I love that. What about you?
I loved it too. It was like the antithesis of the suitcase fight in the office late at night where she's like, "You never say thank you," and "That's what the money's for." This was like the other way that conversation could have gone, which like totally broke down everything and their feelings and their struggles, and it was like the actual raw emotional conversation that they were having when they were screaming at each other back during the suitcase.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's a great way to look at this parallel between this episode and the suitcases. Don, of course, was the one in charge this particular time. This time it's Peggy, and so now you're right. We get to see what it would have been like if Peggy was the run, that was handling this particular pitch, and that was nice. And I just don't ever remember hearing Don describe things the way he did in this, and I thought that was just fantastic. Everything that happens in between them was really, really good, but I think it really, really gets good is later in the evening when they're together and they start talking about, she mentions, of course, her birthday, which you had mentioned is another reference to the suitcase, right?
Right, that was also her birthday. Well, this is supposed to be a couple weeks later, but the suitcase episode takes place during her birthday dinner.
Right, exactly.
And she does not attend.
Now, one of the things, by the way, I don't want to cross over. There was so many great lines in this episode, but that one where Don says that you're basically living in the not knowing. I really like that, because that must be what it's like. I mean, that kind of could really go with life in general. We a lot of times in life we come up with things that we don't really know for sure if this is the right move or not, but you just go with it because that's your gut feeling or whatever it is, right?
Exactly.
So I love that line.
Exactly.
What did you think about this conversation they had during this awesome moment with them in the evening? We're talking about the mother in crisis. You had some comments about that, didn't you?
About the mother in crisis?
About Don, because Don seems to kind of forget a little bit about mother, work, right?
Well, he doesn't. I don't think he's tuned into that at all. And I love Peggy's line where it's like, there are all kinds of mothers working all around you, and that includes herself. A mother who's given away her child, Joan who has a child, one of the secretaries is pregnant. There's all these women around him who have families, and it's just marking that at that time there was like no acknowledgement of. Of course, there are huge parts of the population of women who are working outside the home at this point and are still, expected to maintain all of these other traditional female roles, who are more than happy to bring home some burger chef for their family.
That's right. Yeah, I did like the way she kind of gently reminded him to say, hey, listen, like you said, you work with many women that have families and children and stuff. So I like how she did that, and I think Don had no argument. What is he gonna? He can't argue that. It's something he didn't really think much about, but it's absolutely true.
Yeah. Well, and of course, Don's mother was a working mother of sorts. So, I mean, that should not be a completely foreign concept to him. Well, yeah.
So poor Peggy, she starts to really get down here when she starts talking about the fact that she wants to know where she went wrong, right? I mean, she starts saying, well, I have no business, trying to come up with a pitch that represents family. I don't have a family, right? And we all know that, her family is not the best family situation as it is. And, of course, she had a child and gave that up. So, I mean, I'm sure she's having lots of regrets. And I thought that this moment here where Don tells her that he worries about many things, but I never worry about you. And, of course, Peggy turns and says, well, what do you have to worry about? And then Don says that I never did anything, that I don't have anyone. Wow.
Which is basically Peggy's worry, too. I mean, that they're going through this life and they're not actually achieving anything of importance. And of course they are. I mean, they're doing things for the company, and they are a family of sorts among themselves.
Right.
Particularly Don and Peggy have a very kind of twisted father-daughter relationship. Um, but I thought it was interesting when Peggy was asking him if he where they were talking about the traditional nuclear family and mom and dad, and they sit down at the table and everybody's happy, and she was like, does that even exist anymore? Did you do that with your family? And his response is, I don't remember. He literally does not remember whether he ever sat down with Sally and Betty and Bobby and like had a meal and created that experience for his own family. So I think that meant something to her too, that it's like, just because you have children doesn't necessarily mean that you're fulfilled by that. Obviously Don was not. So and he knows that, and he knows, because he didn't invest in that he won't have anybody.
Yeah, and that has got to be his biggest regrets right now, is that he's starting to realize, man, I really screwed up here, and I don't even remember
Yeah.
what things are like at the dinner table. It was really hard. It was hard to see, but such great drama, and of course they're having this great moment together, and then it ends. That this scene, of course, ends with the two of them dancing to My Way. Oh my gosh, that
That was so
scene was
great.
so fantastic, wasn't it?
That really was. That was beautifully done, and just the expression of like they're both kind of well, Don initiates, like, let's dance. This can't
Right.
just be a coincidence that this song comes on while we're bleeding all over the floor here, our feelings to each other about our lives. And Peggy kind of resists, and then they get up and start dancing, and she like leans her head against his chest in a very daughterly way, and for a second, like, you can see like the wheels spinning in Don's head, like, what's going on, is what is this exactly? And then he kind of realizes this is just this caring, gentle moment. This is not a sexual encounter that's going to happen. And he kisses her
Right.
head, and they just kind of rock back and forth, and it's very sweet. And it's again the two of them kind of being mirrors of each other, or
Hmm.
it's it was very sweet. And I think a lot of people I saw online were saying, like, I thought that was the end of the show, and I thought that
Right.
was the end. I actually like gasped or something, was like, no, it can't be over yet. So I was like, no, and then I was really happy that there was more, but it really would have been a beautiful ending to the episode.
Yeah, that's the first thing that me and my wife looked at each other and go, oh my gosh, that should have been the final shot. And I think a lot of people, like you said, online were talking about that. It could have easily been the final shot. And of course, we wind up getting another great final shot as well. So I'm okay with it not being that, but it certainly could have ended just right there. I would have been satisfied. But there was more of a story that they had to still tell. And we did wind up getting a great final shot with what I don't know if you, I shared a picture. I took a screenshot of that moment with the three of them at the dinner table, which, as you wisely pointed out, was that was them confirming that final pitch they came up with. The fact that when you're sitting together with a group of people at a table having dinner, that's your family. Maybe we're not really family, but they can be family, right? And
Yeah.
that question about, well, what family can be. Family doesn't necessarily have to be blood. It can
Yeah.
be lots of different things.
Well, and
And
there was that
it
little
was a
thing.
great
Sorry.
shot. No, I was just gonna
There
say it
was
was a
that
great shot.
there was that little thing with Pete where he had like mustard on his face, and Don was like, "You got mustard on your face, Johnny." It was
Yes.
like, it was so cute. It was just like, oh, they do take care of each other, even though sometimes they stab each other in the back. I mean, like, Pete definitely tried to take Don down at least
What?
once. I know, but then like Don saved him by paying for his partnership, and like, I mean, there's been a lot of water under those bridges, and they kind of have, they've built a family of, they're war buddies.
Yeah, they all three of them do have an enormous great bond, and I know Greg had pointed out what Vulture had said about that, about the three of them having that special bond between the kid. But it's not just, it's more than just that with the special bond, or the special connection they have with the kid, because the kid has not anything to do with them. Their special bond is this many years they've had together and working together, that they still, no matter all the ups and downs, they still always had respect for each other. And that's just close family. If you work with people for a long time, I worked with quite a few people for a long time. and they're like family to me. I mean,
Yeah.
I always joke the people I work with is my second family. You know, I
Yeah.
see them almost as much as I do my regular family, and I think that happens to each and every one of us that are out there that do have to work full time. That's just something that it can happen, and it was just I just loved it. I really did. It was just a great way to end the episode, and it made me just I couldn't wait for the next episode.
I know. I know. I don't want it to be the last one though.
No, I know it's ooh. We'll get to that as we close the episode. But yeah, it's really painful to think about that. We're gonna be pretty soon here waiting for a long time to see another Mad Men episode. But I don't want to depress myself just yet.
Okay. Okay.
So let's talk about Pete's return. Pete is back. He's of course coming in with Bonnie. Bonnie's coming along with him as her little vacation. I thought it was kind of funny with them in the airport. You picked up on which film they were watching. I did not know which one that was, but I know
That's
you
a
are.
very famous Shirley MacLaine film, Sweet Charity, about a prostitute, more or less. She's kind of a dime a dance girl, but she's more or less a prostitute. But the scene that she's singing is a song, "If They Could See Me Now," all about like her scuzzy friend seeing how great she's had it when she gets picked up by this guy who's living at the Ritz or something. Anyway, so it's her in like this classy apartment dancing around, and it was just so perfect for Pete, who just wants to like look good in front of his friends so badly. So you just heard like a teeny little bit of the song, and you really couldn't even, if you know the film, you wouldn't know that's what it was. But I just thought that was perfect. Just because he so wants to like parade Bonnie around in front of everybody in the office and like look at my beautiful California girlfriend, and he kind of ruined everything in New York before he left, blowing it with Detroit and everything, and the divorce and everything. So it was just like, I'm back and I'm better than ever kind of, thing. So.
Yeah, he really did enjoy showing her off, didn't he?
Oh my God, yes. Yes, yes, yes. And he didn't even care that everybody knew that's what he was doing when Don was like, no, everybody hasn't seen you yet about her. It was, he was just like, ha, yes, I want to make sure everybody's my beautiful California girlfriend.
Yeah, typical Pete style. He was just loving every second of that, wasn't he?
He's a class act, what can we say?
Boy, he sure is. So classy. And of course, the two of them apparently joined the Mile High Club as well.
Absolutely, why not?
Rich, I found a little history. They say that the Mile High Club, supposedly, the rumor has it that it did get started over New York, supposedly. I don't know how much of that's true, but I do know that the inboard movie has been around since the 1920s. I did find that on my research. So we've been watching movies, but it did become really, really popular in the 60s because the advancement of the headphones and things like that, just the advances electronic-wise, made the inboard movie even more popular by this time period. So it wasn't a surprise. And I knew if anybody would know what movie that was, I knew it would be you as our resident film classic expert. So I didn't even do research, really, Elise. I saw it and I go, Elise will figure that out. And then sure enough, I saw her notes and you had it already in there.
Yes. It took me a minute. I was like, what was that? I had to play it back for a second because they didn't give us very much. I recognized her putting the hat on the statue, but I was like, yeah, that's that.
Instead of name that song, name that movie, you'd probably do well in that game, wouldn't you?
Anything before like 1970, yes.
There you go. So let's talk about Pete does go to visit Tammy and Trudy. Ooh, man, this was a painful thing to watch, wasn't it?
It was. It was kind of brutal that Trudy wasn't there for her daughter to like make that transition to spending a day with her absentee father.
Yeah,
I thought that was kind of. Yeah, I didn't think that was very cool. I'm sure she doesn't want to see Pete because it always just devolves into yuckiness. But she should have been there for her kid. I mean, that's kind of harsh to just like desert your kid with the nanny and who I'm sure she loves. But I mean, it's
Sure. Well, Tammy, she special. She really did look like she did not know who that was. And that was pretty sad to see.
Well, or she was just scared. She hasn't seen him in a long time. She looked like she had a good time when she came back with chocolate all over her. So.
Sure, yeah, I'm sure as the day went on, she was okay. But that first reaction was like, "Who are you?"
Right.
Ooh, I just can't imagine as a father. Oh, that would break my heart.
I know.
If that happened to me. Now, of
That's pretty
course, me
iconic.
and Peter are very different people, and I'm pretty sure that I would never get to the point where I was barely visiting my child to where the child forgot what I look like. You know what I mean?
I don't
But
know if that was really common then. I see that in films a lot where
mhm.
people get divorced and then the father just like leaves and nobody thinks that's odd that like they never see their children again. It's just like, oh well we got divorced so she has the kids and and then like often like they'll turn 18 or something and then they'll have like a parent turn up. Maybe that's just a theatrical device or something, but
Could be,
I don't know.
right? Well, the whole scene, of course, when Trudy does eventually come back from her big date, Pete was just as usual. Old Pete really came out quickly, didn't it?
He seemed a little drunk, maybe. I'm not sure if he was, but he was
Probably.
kind of acting a little belligerent there. And
Yeah,
then he
that
brings
probably.
up that publisher guy. That was really funny. I had to look that up. I was like, who's Charlie Fettage? I didn't remember that at
Yeah,
all.
I had to look that up too. That's going back a little bit there. Yeah.
That's really, I'd forgotten that he like tried to get her to sleep with somebody to get a story published. Nice
Yeah,
Pete.
that's for those of you who are trying to pick up. Yeah, that's who that was. I'm sure as soon as you said that, that's all someone needs because I'm sure everyone had many comments about what took place with that. That was oh my goodness.
Oh, I
No, but
remember that though. That was like, oh,
yeah, that was bad. Not one of Pete's shining moments, just like this one wasn't. But I'm sure you're right. That probably was not the first beer he had. Maybe the first beer he's ever slammed inside of the middle of a cake, but but that was probably not his first. He did seem like he was a little bit inebriated there. Maybe a little had a few drinks maybe while he was waiting for her to come back, and you could tell that. Well, Bonnie, I love. By the way, I love Bonnie, and I like how she saw right through all this, and she immediately realized I don't like this Pete from New York.
yeah. Well, she doesn't like him distracted by all of his life stuff, and
Yeah,
I think she realized when he was, in proximity to his child and his wife that they have more of a pull on him than she originally thought. And unfortunately, I don't know if we're going to be seeing Bonnie anymore because she took off. She went home early.
yeah, she
So,
does right. We see her on the plane with Megan at the same time. They're both leaving. Apparently, yeah, she cut the trip short. I mean, I think the last time we see her before that, of course, was their little discussion they had in the hotel room. It did not go very well. I think she was just yeah, she was fed up. She's like, you know what, this is the way you're gonna be. I'm out of here.
yeah. Well, he hadn't
Whether
spent any time with her.
yeah, I mean, she seems pretty serious about him. I mean, she brought up about the fact that she's not very happy with his situation that they're still divorced, and she kind of seemed kind of lead on the fact that she wants to know where this relationship's going, and it's she would even be willing to maybe even get married again, which kind of took him by surprise. I think he thought that she didn't want to be married again. So she's serious about Pete, and then whether or not the two of them are going to stay together or not, that's going to be very interesting. I'm hoping they do though, because I think that this is a good fit for Pete Campbell.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Bonnie would be great, but I don't, our characters over on Madison Avenue are not great at picking out spouses. So she'll probably get, left on the side of the road.
Well, holding out hopes with only 8 episodes left that we will see maybe Pete finally be happy and be happy with Bonnie, because I think that would be a nice ending for that part of his story. You
Yeah,
know?
I mean, he had told when Pete and Stan saw each other for the first time, Pete was like, "Hey, how you doing, Stan?" Stan was like, "I'm in love and in New York," and Pete was like, "Me too." So I mean, he definitely had some genuine feelings for her. So maybe he'll try to mend fences when he gets back to LA. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Well, Bob, speaking of returns, Bob Benson is back. Which one of us said for sure we're going to see Bob in this half? Was that me
I have
or
no
you?
idea.
I know our producer, my wife Rachel, is already in the background going that she said that.
Okay.
We'll have to go back and look. I think one of us did say. I know I said that we were going to see Bob. I just can't remember if I said we will see him for sure by the end of this half or not. So I, of course, was very excited to see Bob Benson back. He was just a fascinating character. Very glad to see him coming back from Detroit with a couple of other Chevy execs. And what did you think? Were you excited to see Bob back?
I was really excited to see Bob back, and I was happy that he was doing so well in Detroit, and Joan seemed happy to see him, and all was right with the world.
Yeah, it kind of starts
Until it
off really
wasn't.
good. Yeah, things seem to start off sort of good for the most part. Then things start kind of getting a little interesting. We have this moment where he gets a phone call in the middle of the night, and apparently, I believe it was Bill, right? The executive named Bill
Yeah, Bill Hartley.
Hartley. That's right. There you go. So he gets arrested apparently, and they call Bob Benson to bail him out. So as the conversation goes on between the two of these, as they're riding back in the cab, you kind of pick up on the fact that apparently, Bill was, from what I can tell, was soliciting sex, from what I can tell, from a man. Is that kind of what we're kind of gathering?
I
That's
think
kind of
that's
everything I've read from everybody.
well, and that's what the officer said.
Oh, that's
He
right.
was caught
Yes.
with an undercover officer filleting.
Well,
I
yeah,
believe the word was,
that's right. I did forget he did use that term. So
or attempting to anyway.
I guess
And
one of the
then it looks
questions.
like they beat the crap out of him. The cops did, which I can't imagine why that was necessary.
Yeah, I got in our historical reference things. I did find a little information about that. That this was a big part of in the 1960s, especially in New York. They actually had a whole division, by the way, called the Moral Division, and this division actually would purposely go out and look for guys like Bill, and they would also do their best to really bring down particular bars and stuff that were associated to being gay bars. I mean, this was a terrible thing that the NYPD was involved in at this time. But of course, at this time, we have to remember the time frame. I mean, this homosexuality to a lot of people was immoral and all this stuff. So this was actually, from what I understand, this is historical. What happened to Bill was, from what I can tell, is kind of unfortunately was something that was a little was common, which is really
No, I'm sure. I'm sure
really hate to
it was
hear
very
that.
sad, and I think that's why Bob had such a reaction to it, where he was like, "I'm not of your stripe," and I think and having to, I'm sure that he had in previous instances been mistreated for his homosexuality or spoken to rudely. I know Pete did, but I think he's kind of a monogamous guy as far as his relationships, and being put in that position with the police officer and being just humiliated like that and
Hmm.
spoken to that way. I think it really upset Bob. I mean, you could tell in the cab he was really upset even before he thought that Bill was threatening him, before he found out that it was actually all good news. He was upset by the whole interchange, as you would be. I mean, if somebody was screaming awful things at you and calling you names, you would be upset.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we know that Bill was married because I think that Bob mentioned that early on during their meetings, and a lot of the questions I had from a few people on Twitter was questioning, like, well, kind of implied in this scene that well, obviously Bob apparently knows his situation. So do you think maybe at some point, be living out there in Detroit, that maybe the two of them, had a relationship a little bit together? You think?
I
Kind of
don't
what I
know. I mean, they definitely had sussed each other out, or Bill had, thought he had Bob's number, or
right.
to call him and know that he would, cover the lie for him. And Bill does say his wife understands, which I think means, she knows she's married to a gay man, and she's made the arrangement that Joan chose not to. So
Right.
I think that happened. I mean, it happened a lot. I think a lot of gay people married straight people, and for either knowingly or unknowingly, and had an arrangement, and and it was expected that they would do whatever they did without being found out.
Gotcha.
So
So
getting
yeah,
arrested would
this
be
makes
bad
a lot of
news.
sense. So basically, all that dialogue that we had leading up to the moment when Bob approaches Joan was to kind of let us know that this is probably where Bob came up with this idea. That this was kind of maybe spawned this idea for him, thinking, well, if Bill's doing this, maybe this is something I can do with Joan, someone that he does care a lot about, and that's the reason why he decided to approach her. Is that basically what you're saying?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I think once Bill Hartley told him that they were going to hire him in house to work Buick, he realized he was going to need to set up a cover story for him. He couldn't just be this, single guy, that wouldn't go over in Detroit. So, he and Joan have a relationship. I was not certain that Joan realized that he was gay. So I was kind of surprised that she was like, what's happening? You shouldn't be with a woman. Um, so so yeah, I mean, I think it was kind of a combination of all of those things. He was like, oh, I need to get a wife. Joan is here and maybe up for this. She's almost 40. Which, guys, if you're proposing to someone, don't lay into your proposal and you're almost 40, because that's not going to get you anywhere good. um, so
Yeah.
yeah, that was huge bad form. But yeah, I think he thought that was a good shot, that she might go for it to have the security for her son and everything, and he just didn't realize that Joan's been down that road enough times with the wrong guy, that now she's able to support herself as a partner, so she really doesn't need to do that. And I was happy to hear her say that she wasn't offering. This wasn't the best offer she was going to get. She didn't care if she went to her grave, never being married again. She was going to wait for love. And I was like, yay, Joan!
I thought she handled herself so well in that.
Absolutely.
That was fantastic, and she did. She had the perfect answer to his question about being, we could comfort each other in this uncertain world and be this partnership. She had the right answer about the, you should want love just like I do, and that
Yeah.
was great. I love that.
If he had showed up a couple years ago, though, he might have gotten a different answer from her.
I agree. Joan has, of course, just like everybody else, has really grown.
Yeah. I am, however, thinking that Bob still needs a wife, and Meredith maybe next
yes.
on his stop, because she's not the brightest bulb in the agency, and she might just fall for that one.
I don't know. You're gonna have to pry her away from her eyes on Don every day.
I know.
You see how she was not happy, by the way, with Bonnie trying to move in on her man.
That was, you can't just walk in here.
Yeah.
Do you want me to call you in 5 minutes? Wink, wink.
Yeah, that was great.
So funny.
I definitely tweeted Stephanie Drake, who plays Meredith, about that one, and she favored my tweet. That was just too funny. That was great stuff.
She's
Meredith
great.
has definitely been so much entertainment this season.
The more business they can give her, the better. She's hysterical.
Absolutely. So last question about Bob. What do you think? What's the future for Bob? Apparently he's it sounds like he's going to be working for Buick. We don't know how that's going to play out. Are we still going to see more Bob, I hope?
I think, well, I don't know. I mean, what I just said, he's going to be in Detroit and possibly married to Meredith. But then towards the end, there was that whole thing with Roger and Jim from McCann in the steam room. And once he kind of found out the backstory there, he was thinking that maybe McCann's afraid that they're going to lose Buick to Sterling Cooper and Partners. So maybe the final season will have, Sterling Cooper and Partners and Bob working together to get that Chevy deal back, since they'll have a guy on the inside.
Right, I agree. I think that's kind of what we may be setting up here for. I mean, obviously that was big news in the episode.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, they're losing Chevy. But like you said, there was a conversation about, well, they really do like the work, and there's something ahead there's something they have in store for the company. So I kind of wondering because then you have the odd conversation that we had with the guy. Is it Bill? I think it was Bill, one of the Erickson guys. Yeah, okay. That with Roger in the sauna room, and of course Roger didn't know what was going on, but now we kind of realize he's kind of moving in, because I think he's also concerned that, well, maybe they're going to get some Buick thing. So is Buick in the future for Sterling Cooper Partners? Is that what you're thinking then?
Yeah, I think so. At least that light bulb was, when Joan told Roger at the end of the episode what the whole backstory, he definitely was like, that's what that guy was talking about and he does mention Buick in the steam room. So Roger's little quip about, when we grow up, we're going to kill you and marry your wife, may come to fruition, the wife being Buick and them just gobbling up their clients. So fingers crossed, fingers crossed. More clients for Sterling Cooper and Partners, the better.
Yeah, I hope so. We'll see how that plays out. But obviously, that was big thing in this episode was like, uh-oh, could this be turning bad? But it does sound like that this things are maybe okay. So we'll see how that patches out. I definitely think we're in for a major battle here in this final episode of 2014. I think with what Cutler wants and what Roger wants. So we'll see how this plays out. But it should be very, very interesting.
Yeah, although I think Cutler was hoping to cut Don out with the cigarette thing, but I think
right.
now I think he just wants the company to do well, and he's definitely going to try to jockey for as much power as he can. But I mean, he's losing Bob Benson, who was one of his soldiers, and
right.
and I think he probably still thinks he has Harry in his back pocket, which he probably does to some degree, but I mean, Harry has proved that he is more loyal to Don than to Cutler. So I think he's going to have to. I think he's reassessing how much power Don has there, and how much people really are loyal to him, and that he's not just going to be able to flip them that easily, if at all.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the maybe that battle or the war, I think, is what Roger called it, might not be quite as strong, especially now with this new news. And I think that conversation, you get right, they had in the boardroom, which of course we find out that he pitches the idea about having Harry Crane. The other big news: Harry Crane is going to be a partner. What do you think about that?
Do you remember? Roger has always hated Harry. He's always like, let's fire him. Let's fire him. That's like every time someone says Harry, he says, let's fire him. Do you remember? I don't remember. Was there ever a particular thing that happened between them, an altercation of some kind, that he just doesn't like him for? Or is it just a personality thing? I don't remember anything ever happening between them.
I always thought it was just a personality thing. I thought he just annoyed him. Maybe some of the fans can write in and maybe refresh our memory about maybe a particular moment that really rubbed Roger the wrong way, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
And Joan wasn't happy either. Joan was like,
Well, that makes sense because remember Harry, he was kind of hard on Joan about the way she got the partnership. Yeah. Remember, he was the only one that was outspoken about that. I think Ken wanted to be, but he wasn't going to say anything. But Harry did, as you remember from last season.
Yeah.
So that caused a real tear and rip in any relationship the two of them had.
That's true. You're right.
So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in this final episode. And I do want to briefly, real quickly, before we start closing things out. Don and Megan, obviously Megan has another visit to the New York, another person from L.A. coming out to visit Don. What do you think about what transpires here? Because I think there's some big-time signs that were going off as far as their relationship. I mean, we know that the previous episode even showed us that there's problems still. And I think this episode even more so. What did you think about what transpired with Megan this week?
Yeah, I think this was, the first episode. They didn't really have any angry words between them this entire season. Almost, I think every episode so far they've gotten into some big nasty fight and then gotten back together. So this one they seemed kind of mellow and okay together. Megan surprises Don by showing up at work where it sounded like they were supposed to meet at home, and I don't think Don really wanted Megan to show up there and see that he's no longer in his big office. And
right,
I mean, he didn't try to hide it when she was there, and he seemed genuinely happy to see her. But I think he would have preferred her not show up at the office and see his greatly diminished position there.
Yeah, that has to do with appearances. We know that Don does not like her seeing him in this position, so that's very understandable there. No, I think here's what I picked up on. To me, Don was so happy to see his wife back in New York. He loved when he woke up in the morning and saw that she was making breakfast. I think he started having these visions of the two of them being together back in New York and how it kind of was before things when she moved to LA. And I got this feeling that Megan was using her acting skills to pretend like she was also enjoying herself as well. But I get a feeling there's something else going on with Megan. This whole thing with the packing, looking for the fondue set, the newspaper, all these things I think were signs to tell us that I don't know who Megan is with, but I'm wondering if that prediction about Megan having an affair on Don and leaving him is about to come true. What do you think?
Yeah, the when he wakes up and he sees the Kennedy newspaper where she's taken some things out of the closet and left them out, and obviously they saved the picture, the front page of the newspaper from the day Kennedy was killed, and that was also sort of the final unraveling of his marriage to Betty, that episode for us. So
Yeah.
so that definitely was like, oh, that's obviously not a good day historically, but also just not a good day for Don. So there's that, and then there's just that weirdness where he's like, well, I can bring some stuff, and she's like, when are you coming to LA? Like, oh God, you can't come to LA. Second of terror on her face before she acts her way out of it and says like, oh well, let's meet somewhere else. I don't want to be here in New York or you in LA. Let's go somewhere else. So it does feel like maybe somebody's moved into the house, and I'm guessing it's Amy. I think maybe their little three-way has developed into a relationship between Amy and Megan.
Interesting.
And I'm guessing we probably won't find out about that until the final 7, but that's my guess.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to. I hate speculating on for sure exactly what's going on, but I do think that there's possibility she's with somebody, and it would be very interesting to see who and what. But I have a feeling we're probably going to find out next week. That's my prediction for sure. I think we're going to find out.
It might just be Megan's wig maker. She's got more wigs than anybody I know.
Well, we know it's not Alan Silver. He said that,
Probably
let you know, Don, I have nothing. I don't know nothing with her, Don. She's just my gal. She's just my gal. It's all about money, Don. All about money.
I had no idea you did impressions.
Oh, yes, I do. Ask my wife. She'll tell you. It's very annoying to the rest of the household. They're not very good.
That was really funny, though.
So, real, I don't want to. You wanted a chance to talk about Joan. She made a little reference about her being on a diet and losing weight and stuff. You wanted to briefly mention that as well. What did you want to say about that?
So people who followed my blog posts on Mad Men know that I have had this long theory that there was something wrong with Joan. Joan, like in the first season, says something about eating in a hotel room reminds her of being in a hospital, or eating in bed reminds her of being in a hospital. Then she has all of these respiratory issues when the ant farm gets broken and she's spraying ant spray, when the lawnmower's in the office and she's coughing. She's always coughing. I've actually asked the cast about it, and Christina did say that the coughing was in the script, and she wondered why too. And then Matt Weiner, in a very nice way, told me to shut up and stop asking questions about that. So, so last night, and there's been other things throughout, small things, implying that she has some sort of respiratory issue. So last night when her mother said to her, "You're disappearing," and then she made some comment about being on a diet, I was like, twinge. So it's entirely possible she's wasting away from whatever her respiratory issue is. I'm desperate to find out what it is. Every time they have anything about her health, I'm like, what is it? What is it? Tell us what it is. So we shall see. But I'm wondering also, because a lot of people, I love Christina and I think she's beautiful, however she is, but she has been a little more plump since she had Kevin, and I just assumed that she was, a little bit bigger than she had been. But I'm wondering if they've been padding her, because now that I think about it, they did kind of have her, sort of squished into dresses, and if she was actually gaining weight in real life, I think they probably would have just given her bigger dresses. But it felt like there for a while they were kind of squishing her into some smaller things. So
Yeah.
So they might have been padding her. I don't know.
That's an interesting thought. The production crew does such a great job with that. I mean, look what happened with Peggy when she got pregnant. I had no idea, but they just brilliantly made it look like that she was just gaining a little bit of weight at a time, and
Yeah.
so they could obviously do the same thing with Joan. Just pat her a little bit to make it look like she still has a lot of the baby fat, and then all of a sudden when the time is right, a little bit of time, a little bit of time, and now she's much skinnier again. So
Yeah, because I
they did
mean,
a good
really,
job.
markedly in this episode, she is much thinner
Yeah,
than
she
she
did look
has been.
thin.
I mean, when she came in that purple dress and she was, swishing along, and she was hot, gorgeous Joan, and I, the episodes before this, I literally just had a conversation with a guy who was making comments that she was, a little chunky, and I was telling him to shut up, but uh, but you got to own it. She was a little bit bigger than she has been in previous times. So either way, she's gorgeous. But I'm wondering if that was all just padding, and maybe now they're gonna like just strip her down, and we may lose our Joni, which would be terrible.
Oh, say it's not so. I hope not. That would
Yeah.
be terrible.
We would kill Roger, I'm sure.
Well, is there anything we missed before we move on to our references and questions, our pop culture
Hmm.
references? Anything we missed? I was going through. I think we covered most of the good stuff.
I'm sure. I'm sure there's a million things we missed, but we'll,
That's true.
we will
Well,
move on,
we
or
will
we'll
move
be here
on.
all
If
day.
anybody wants to continue this conversation, they can always do it on our website or wherever they want online, Twitter, whatever you want to do. Hit us up. We always will love talking about things we missed. We'll just quickly go through some of these references because it's getting late. Obviously, "My Way," one of the greatest songs of all time, sung by one of my favorite artists of all time, the great Frank Sinatra, Mr. Blue Eyes himself. That song was released on June 14th, 1969, which gives us a reference to the time frame because of the fact that, you know, Peggy even said, well, they're playing it over and over again. Well, obviously that's something they would do when a song first gets released. They play the heck out of it. They still even do that today, don't they?
They do.
And my wife wanted to point out the fact that, of course, that "My Way" was written by the great Paul Rachel
Anka.
Anka, yes, which was on Dancing with the Stars recently. She went to point out.
Yes.
So
He's written a lot of songs.
yeah, he's a legend, legendary in
Yeah.
music.
And
So.
he actually wrote that, thought it was great, and said, but it's a Sinatra song, and gave it to Sinatra, and his own record company was not happy with him for not giving it to them first.
Right. Yeah. Yep. So that was great, and of course the song was perfect for that scene, right?
Oh my God. Perfect, perfect. I didn't know that song came out that late. I thought that was a much earlier song. So when I heard it, I was like, why are they playing that? But it was a great song, and the lyrics and everything are just dead on.
Yeah, it was perfect. You wanted to talk a little bit about the play. This was the play that Pete and Bonnie were going to see, right?
Oh, just Old Calcutta is just another like highly sexualized play. They mentioned a lot of just kind of X-rated things in this episode. They were all going to see their the what's the other one? I'm Curious Yellow that
Yeah,
Dawn and Megan were
done.
seeing.
Yeah, that I knew nothing about this movie, but I did kind of look into it. It's part of two parts of it. It's a Swedish film, and yeah, it is a bizarre movie about a woman who, mainly, I think the movie it sounds like it's a look into society itself, dealing with a lot of things about people and society. There's a lot of political stuff that's mentioned in the movie, so it was definitely one of those. I guess in today's current we call it an art film, right? In the two pieces, the other one is "I Am Curious Blue," which of course those two colors are referencing the Swedish flag, and they were meant to be watched together as a 3.5 hour long movie. The little bit I read about the movie, it doesn't sound like one I'm going to rush out and see, but it was very explicit. It was lots of very, well, at that time would have been sexual stuff that people would have really been shunned upon, and it was banned in many parts of the United States. It was banned almost everywhere for a long time, and then eventually got released in the United States. And New York was one of those areas in Manhattan you were able to see the movie, but it wasn't something you could just it wasn't something you could see. And there was a lot. I think Boston was one of the cities that never played it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of the places that got banned. So yeah,
Yeah.
so two questionable or two not questionable, two things that are kind of touching on a lot of the same subjects. that was mentioned during this episode, which of course ties in great as usual with the episode, right?
Yeah.
Roger does a quick mention of Leo Burnett. Do you know who that is?
He's just another ad guy who's in the town. I think he's, because um, Jim from McCann is talking about
Yeah,
Philip
Philip
Morris, and
Morris.
he's like, what are you guys all in here?
Yeah, is Leo Burnett in there? He's actually considered one of the most creative men in advertising business. He's known for heavily being involved in. The people say that he is really the reason for the creative revolution in 1960s in advertising. So this, and at one time, Burnett was named Time's 100 most influential people of the 20th century. So this guy,
Wow.
he was advertising. I mean, he still is today. He's advertising. So it was an off mention, of course, by Roger, but there was, of course, significance with the fact that he was heavily involved. His agency did a lot of work for Philip Morris, of course. Now, I already mentioned about the NYPD, the Morals Division. I already talked a little bit about that. That's all I really had for pop culture and historical references. I did want to mention something, though. I have not mentioned all season long. I feel really bad about this. For those of you who do not know this, AMC is carrying full episodes on their website this year. Did you notice that, Elise?
Yeah, I think they've been announcing that you can watch the full episodes online.
Well, that's for people who actually pay attention to the commercials.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, there's a lot of people that do gloss over it. I mean, especially since this is one of the biggest DVR shows, people are skipping through the commercials, right?
Yeah. Well, I always watch it live, and then I rewatch it, and then I'm like taking notes during the commercials. So I am one of 3 people who actually see commercials anymore.
There you go. Yeah. One of the few people. I am one of those kind of people. Because I'm interested in advertisement and how they do ads, I'll stop if I see a really good ad, or if somebody tells me about it, I'll usually go online and watch it there. So
Yeah.
I do eventually get the ads. I do eventually consume them some way or other.
You know what I just realized? They don't have like the fake Mad Men ads this year.
No, they
Remember
did not
last
have that
year,
this season.
Yeah, I don't even remember what those ads were for. It was always like for.
I think it was just to try to boost people's interest in going back and watching the old ones, perhaps.
No, I know, but they used to show like they had actual commercials, but they tried to make them look like Mad Men, and they were for.
Oh,
them.
yes.
They were like
Yes,
actual
that's correct.
commercials, but kind of ripping off the Mad Men look.
Yeah,
But
those
they
were
haven't done those.
yeah,
And I
those
can't
ads were
remember what they
purposely
were
done
for.
that way. Yeah, that's right. That was a couple seasons ago they did that, right?
Was it not last year?
Maybe it was.
I don't know.
I don't know. I thought it was kind of ironic that we're talking about the potential of maybe Sterling Cooper and Partners doing Buick, and John Hamm, of course, did the voice. Oh no, was it John Hamm or was it John Slattery? Slattery maybe. I know one of those two. Lincoln. Okay, John. I just remember one of them doing something for Lincoln or Buick.
Yeah.
One of those.
John Hamm's doing a lot of voiceovers and commercials.
Well,
He
he
does
has such a great
American.
voice.
He does. Yeah, he does.
Right.
He will not starve.
We had some comments on the page, so I'll go ahead and go through this really, really quick. Make sure we only have one. This person had like a bunch of questions, so maybe we try to quickly go through this. Chuckle Image on the actual web, YouTube page had this questions. The first one is about Pete. Do you think Pete is trying to help Don by throwing him a bone with Burger Chef, like banishing comrades in arms, or is Pete too removed with being in LA from the agency and not realize about how far Don's fallen, or is he just really wants to land the account and feels that the agency wants Don? Don's the best man for the job. I think we kind of talked a little bit about this.
Yeah, he has faith in Don. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody has faith in Don. They've seen how great he can be when he's sober, and he's sober right now. So, I mean, if he starts being drinky, I'm sure they'll all walk away from him. But right now, he's being good, so they all are like, yes, let's get this account, and let's use every tool in the box.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't think Pete was so far off to not know Don's situation. I think that he's pretty much in the know with that. I think it's just the fact that he feels that Don is the best man.
Yeah.
So.
And he's always been weird about Peggy anyway. He does not like dogs playing pianos. It confuses him.
Well, he has a bunch of questions about Harry Crane as well. First one was, do you think Harry will continue to have Don's back now that he's going to be a partner? What
If
do you
it
think
suits
about that?
him. I mean, if you know, if it does him no harm. I mean, Harry's pretty, on Team Harry, but I, if it suits his purposes, I think he will be loyal to Don. If it's a choice between Cutler and Don, I think he'll pick Don. But if there's something more to gain for him by going with Cutler, then he'll probably do what serves him best.
Right, yeah, because he goes on to ask about that. He says like he's wanting to know, do we think that Harry Crane is going to use his newfound power as a partner to help Don regain his power, or is he going to be used by Cutler to squeeze Don out? So it's one of those things that we don't obviously know for sure, but I think that it's very possible that I think because of their long history, I think he's going to be more supportive of Don. That's going to be my final stand on that question. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah, as long as it doesn't do him any harm.
Yeah. And his last question was a lot. He wants to know what we think is next going to go on. We have a lot of great questions, and I hate to go through these so quickly, and kind of brush over some of your questions because they're really good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and answer them for him or for this person. I don't know who this person is, but I'm going to go back and answer some of these questions since we're kind of running a little bit low on time. But really good questions. I really appreciate that. I'm trying to make sure that there's nothing here about Twitches. Yeah, I think whatever it was, we could definitely answer some more of these questions online. But I really appreciate any questions we get. I just checked Twitter here. I don't have any other questions, and I don't see anything on the screen. So I believe, Elise, that's going to be it for us for questions. Elise, did you have anything you wanted to say? Anything we missed that you wanted to talk about?
No, I think I'm good, except for Stan's in love with somebody that isn't Peggy, which kind of bummed me out. I was sure that it was going to be Stan and Peggy.
Oh, that's right. We did kind of gloss over that.
That's
Oh
all right.
no.
We'll see.
There's
Maybe
still
we'll see who that is next week.
There's still hope. There's still 8 more episodes.
I know it could still
Something can
happen. And
Yeah.
Pete's free apparently. Bonnie's gone, so maybe the Peggy Pete thing will happen.
Absolutely. My wife also wanted to point out something I forgot in my review. I was going to mention about $1 Million Arm, and that is that I love the end of the movie. Make sure you stay afterwards because they had some great real scenes and videos and pictures from what happened, the real life stuff, which was great. So make sure, for those of you who do go out and see $1 Million Man, make sure you stick around for that in the movie theater, or $1 Million Arm. Sorry, whatever. Elise, if you ever, I told my wife, I said, I got to remind Elise that whenever I misspeak, to make sure you tell me because I do that so often. Don't ever feel afraid to correct me during the podcast because I do it too often. So.
All right.
But it was a great movie. So that is it for us, everyone. We will be back next week. Don't forget we're doing the big giveaway. I don't want anybody to be missed out on this. Go to madmanpodcast.com/DVD giveaway. That's all one word. Check out the rules. We would definitely want everybody to have an opportunity to win this thing. That's going to be great. We will be back here next week. Now, Elise and I are trying to work. We're going to have a special time next week. That's Memorial Day, right, Elise? So we're going to be doing this on.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm going to be at a baseball game from 3 o'clock or so on. So we're going to try to shoot for, it would be 8 o'clock my time. So at 9 o'clock Eastern time, which is 6 o'clock your time and Pacific time, right, Elise?
Yes.
That's the goal. So
Yes.
if that changes, I will definitely make sure I say something on Facebook, Twitter, and the website. Under the live page, I will put the time if it changes. But for right now, that is what we're shooting for that episode. So make sure if you haven't watched us live, this would be a good time to get in there and watch us live and ask us some questions. I'm just sure we're going to have lots of them with this being the final episode for 2014. So there will be lots of good material, I'm sure, for us to talk about. So be sure to do that. If you're not subscribed, get subscribed. It's very easy. For the video feed of this, you can go to madmanpodcast.com/YouTube and subscribe to our channel so you can make sure you don't miss any of the videos. And for those of you who would like the audio version only, make sure you say subscribe to us there. We go to madmanpodcast.com/iTunes to subscribe to us on iTunes. And, of course, we're in lots of venues. Stitcher, Zune, we're in all the big networks. There's lots of ways to make sure you subscribe to us, so please do that. If you have any questions at all, send them to me at feedback@madmanpodcast.com. Check out the website. We have all our information up there. Be sure to follow Elise, which is at Elise CD on Twitter, right, Elise?
That's me.
And, of course, make sure you read her blog, which, of course, is Elise's Ramblings. Is that correct?
Yes, Elise'sRamblings.com.
Fantastic. You won't be disappointed by reading her blog. You can read the blog and then listen to our review. So that's what I do, Elise. That's my... I read your blog, and then I prepare myself for our podcasts. So you can also, of course, like our page on Facebook, which is facebook.com/madmancast. And that is it for me, Elise. You have yourself a fantastic evening, and thank you for joining me.
You too. Bye, Jeremiah. Bye, everybody.
All right, take care, everybody. Remember to stay mad.